I want to welcome back Carson Ingle, who covers Orlando sports down in Orlando at 407area.com. Gives a lot of insight on UCF football. We've talked to Carson over the years. Carson, certainly welcome back.
Hey, it's good to talk to you again. Another season rolls around for us, Matt, and somehow or another in the scheduling, we actually get the opener, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, we're down to 6 days from that opener. You guys are traveling up here to Connecticut with a new coaching staff. So Scott Frost obviously heading off to Nebraska after the best year in UCF history, probably the best year of any AAC school since this conference started. What's Scott Frost's legacy down in Orlando? We'll get to UCF in a minute, but just Scott Frost, what he brought to UCF, what's his legacy now that he's off to Nebraska?
Yeah, the Frost legacy is a little bit mixed just because I think the fan base is still salty, that he for Nebraska. I mean, there were people that thought that, no matter what job it was, he wasn't going to leave. And there was some legitimate reasons to believe that that was true. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Now Frost is home at his alma mater. And while people are certainly grateful for the season that was had and the team and program that was rebuilt by Frost, I think right now it's still, that wound is still a little fresh. I'm certainly someone who is very thankful to Scott Frost. I hope he's super successful at Nebraska. And I think as time goes on, that, that'll probably, hopefully at least, be the sentiment that's shared a greater percentage of the fan base. Is just that, this guy did a lot here, and we're very appreciative of it. And maybe there's an opportunity down the line to recognize him or honor him in some way.
That's really interesting because I'm pretty far away up here in Connecticut, but trying to follow it as closely as possible. It seemed when coaches leave, there's usually, we're thankful for Orlando, we're thankful for wherever we were. It really seemed truly heartfelt that Scott Frost, it was a tough decision for him. He felt almost compelled like he had to go to Nebraska, his alma mater. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that there's some fan pushback on that, just given how he did depart.
Yeah, I think that you picked up on something very true there. And anytime I try to kind of talk a fan down off the ledge, that's sort of where I go in the conversation, because it did seem very genuine to me. And there were moments, even publicly, privately, with a couple different media members where he did have kind of what do I do? And I think it was a pressure to go back home. He knows that he's probably the only guy at this point that can reboot that program there. He's got family in the state still. His parents are lifelong Nebraska fans. He was a boyhood hero basically in the state. So I honestly don't think there's any other job that he would have left for. But I think Nebraska was that job that he had to go to, and I think he still holds Orlando in a very high place and hopes that everything goes well here. And I do wish that the fan base could kind of reciprocate that feeling a little more back his way.
So, undefeated season, Peach Bowl win over Auburn, and then parade at Disney, championship rings, championship banners. What's this offseason been like in Orlando?
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been exciting, and it's obviously been very controversy-filled. I think it's really united the fan base. It's been a huge galvanizing force, the whole thing, the whole proclamation of the national championship, the debates that have raged on across the country. That's brought everyone together. I think that everyone's sort of rowing in the same direction right now. The fans, the athletic department, they now realize that UCF has a firm identity in a place and a role in a place in college sports that's sort of this instigator, this challenger brand that is trying to break through the glass ceiling and disrupt the power structure that exists in college football. And, you've seen the results in now 93% of the stadium, at least as in terms of the last announcement, is sold out for the season. They've done a great job in terms of the way that they've marketed season tickets, the way that they have taken what existed of Spectrum Stadium and carved out different premium areas of the stadium that have got people involved. And yeah, there's no doubt that there's never been more excitement not just for a football program that is ranked in the top 25 preseason for the first time in school history, but also just everything going on in UCF athletics. UCF was only one of 4 schools in the country that finished with a winning record in every team sport. The basketball program is picked by some as a favorite in the American this year. So everybody is sort of riding this high, and certainly football is driving the bus and is the main force behind all of it.
Yeah, and you touched on their preseason ranking. I believe it's 21 in the AP, 23 in the coaches. Still probably a little low given what occurred last season, how the offense performed. Yeah. But brand new coaching staff across the board, I believe. With Coach Heupel coming in, how has he transitioned in?
He's been great. And it's funny because I think that's part of the whole Frost thing. Like, even when Frost was here, he's just a different kind of guy. He's a very, very reserved guy, a very private guy, and, you couldn't really get up close and personal with him and get to know him all that well. Now, he was much more of an engaging personality in his second season than he was in his rookie debut as a head coach. But that's, I think, a little bit of the reason for the Frost, backlash, because Josh Heupel has come in and been a super engaging presence with the community. He's been absolutely tremendous with the fans. I mean, I myself was able to meet him a few months ago and spend about 5 to 10 minutes with him, just kind of talking about just every sort of random thing that came up in our conversation. And he also did a tremendous job. UCF recently held a tour stop in downtown Orlando, a little pep rally event. And he just kind of got up there, and the words flowed, and the conversation was very open and loose. So he's very good in that setting. And I think that's been a very great asset to him and endearing him quickly to the UCF fan base.
And then offensively, obviously a high-powered offense last year. He had one at Missouri who came in here up at UConn last year and really put a hurting on the UConn defense, specifically pass defense. Offensively, with Mackenzie Milton, Heisman Trophy candidate, of course, is he asking Milton to do a few things differently than Coach Frost was with his offensive philosophy, particularly pushing the ball downfield a bit?
Yeah, it sounds like that's where things are headed for the Knights' offense, is going to be a little more of a downfield vertical passing game, maybe a little less of the run-pass option that you saw in Frost's arsenal. They're trying to keep a lot of the verbiage and some of the similarities of that offense just because it was so successful and because UCF returned so much talent, but also adjusting there, maybe throwing it down the field more. I think that you've seen in certain stats that have come out this offseason, particularly the work that Pro Football Focus does. They've shown that Mackenzie Milton was one of the best downfield throwers in the country last year anyways. So it sounds like Milton's very comfortable with what he's being asked to do. And time will tell if it's an effective strategy, though. I know there's some detractors at Missouri, people that I've heard from and read about that, say that, that was all Heupel's offense was just sort of throw it downfield and, on a hope and a prayer. So we'll see how the balance of that goes through this season and how well it fits the personnel at UCF.
We're talking UCF football with Carson Ingle as UCF comes into UConn to kick off the 2018 college football season next Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Rent. Now, sticking with Mackenzie Milton, UCF seems to be putting a Heisman campaign out for him. In some of the interviews I've seen, he's very down to earth. It's not about him; it's more about the team. He likes to deflect that a bit. How do you think he handles the spotlight and the attention being on him?
Yeah, he's really great at handling all of this. And boy, have we seen a guy grow up before our eyes, really. I mean, his freshman year was not great. I remember during the offseason just not really expecting anything out of him. There was a moment in time in the offseason where Scott Frost had to fly to Hawaii and get him to even come back. Wow. He was homesick. He wanted to go home. His mom relocated to Central Florida. She lives in the area now. Great lady. I've gotten to kind of hang out and spend some time with their family, and they're tremendous. And with that structure in place, and I think with Frost's, just confidence in him and what he showed in him and the faith that he showed in Mackenzie last offseason, that's really allowed Milton to blossom and to become the player that he is. And now he's so much more of a team leader. He's got that quiet confidence. He's got that kind of cool vibe that players want to follow. And I expect that to even be, a greater thing that grows in his personality and grows in terms of a team leadership standpoint this year.
And offensively, he still has Adrian Killens, Otis Anderson, of course, at the running back spots. Traquan Smith off to the NFL, but a transfer coming in from Ole Miss, who I hear is nothing but speed, and a few other transfers. A tight end from Wisconsin, I'm not sure if he's going to see the field this year, and also an offensive lineman from Notre Dame. What can you say about the turnover, and what are some of the differences you're going to see offensively, personnel-wise, this year?
Yeah, the turnover hasn't been much. I mean, the receivers behind Traquan Smith are all back. You mentioned the addition of Trey Nixon, and then they've got Dredrick Snelson, who I think is very good. I certainly believe Snelson's ready to step up into that number one role. You've got guys like Gabe Davis, Marlon Williams, who are sophomores. They're going to be really good. The tight end position, I think Jay Teskok is the guy that you're mentioning from Wisconsin. He could factor in. Michael Kalubiali was granted a 6th year of eligibility. He's a guy that played a little bit last year, but they had Jordan Franks and they had Jordan Akins, who are both gone to the NFL. So I think Kalubiali is going to be the tight end there. There is just a crazy amount of weapons and options in this offense still. I think the one difference you're going to see is it sounds like they're going to utilize Otis Anderson more as a wide receiver, less as a running back. He's still going to do both. So we're going to look for the distribution in terms of that real early on, especially even against UConn. And then just to see what other running backs play in addition to Killens and Anderson. There might be even a lot of carries that a guy named Greg McCrae gets, who is a walk-on player, just got a scholarship. He's only a sophomore, but he already played a little bit of mop-up duty last year. I'm interested to see if he hits the field up there in Connecticut. That's one to watch.
And defensively, of course, the loss of Shaquem Griffin at linebacker, but also Mike Hughes, and then a few others in the secondary. It seems the secondary is really young, but very, very talented, including Aaron Robinson coming over at corner from Alabama. What can you say about the defense, and who's going to really pick up the pieces for some of the departures from last season?
Yeah, no, I really like the secondary with Neville Clark at corner, who was suspended the first 6 games last year. He's back and ready to go. The safety position with guys like Kyle Gibson, Richie Grant, Antoine Collier, who had a big pick in the Peach Bowl. I like what they've got in the secondary. I think that also, linebacker is going to be an interesting transition, certainly without Shaquem Griffin there on the edge, but you've got Pat Jasinski in the middle, who's a stabilizing presence, a pretty good leader there. Defensive line-wise, in the interior, I think they're going to be solid with Tristan Hill, who's an all-conference type of guy, and then Joey Connors, who's just a really senior veteran leader type on the defense. The one area that I question is, how does the pass rush change? Because it's going to be a little bit of more multiple fronts under Randy Shannon. Mm-hmm. I don't know what guys on this team really profile to be able to put their hand in the dirt and still rush the quarterback. Titus Davis is one name that we've been told to keep a lookout for, and also Randy Charlton, who's a freshman, may see a lot of time at defensive end. So I'm interested to see how the pass rush comes together, and particularly what the rotation looks like at defensive end.
And then finally, I've heard Coach Heupel refer to this season as being attacking. Of course, other teams are going to attack UCF and try to give them their best shot. But it seems like he's trying to instill a mentality that UCF needs to do the same coming off of last season. How do you feel he's really mixed in with this group of players? I know he's hosted barbecues at his house and mixed some things up with personnel like that off the field. Do you expect a slow start, and how are they going to approach this season?
I don't. I mean, I think they've done the best job that they can, transitioning over and getting acclimated and getting to know everyone and making everybody comfortable. It's just going to be one of those time will tell things. This is sort of, it's probably happened a few times before, but it's kind of uncharted territory. You don't normally have a team that goes undefeated, that returns as much talent that they do, but yet has an entirely new coaching staff. So we don't really know how this is going to work out. And I mean, they can't afford really to have an adjustment phase. They can't they can't afford that, which is why you've heard that whole attacking champions mantra being thrown out in the press and in social media, is because they've got to be ready to go from minute one. You know, they're going to be favored in every game. UCF, from an athletic department standpoint, from a marketing perspective, has certainly, you know, up to the ante by boasting and being out there and puffing their chests out. And honestly, the rest of the country is waiting to see when UCF loses. So that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of expectations coming in for Josh Heupel, and I don't think we really know how it's going to play out until we see it.
Well, we'll find out 6 days from tonight to kick off the season. UCF at UConn again, 7 p.m. on ESPNU. Carson, again, it's a pleasure having you on once again, talking UCF football here on the UConn Sports Nation podcast. And give the fans where they can find you online.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to 407area.com and read my UCF columns and more Orlando sports stuff. And you can also find me on Twitter, where I post all that too, at CAINGLE.